Rain fell in thin, silvery threads, soft enough to sound like whispering against a tin roof. Clara Whitmore moved through the dim barn with a lantern swinging from her hand, its light catching dust in the air like slow-moving snow. The smell of hay, damp wood, and medicine lingered. She paused at the last stall where the white mare lay half-curled in the straw, sides barely rising. Luna's breath came shallow, her coat dull under the yellow light. Clara knelt, brushing trembling fingers down the mare's neck. "Easy, girl," she murmured. The skin felt cold. She pulled a worn blanket tighter around the horse and glanced toward the doorway, where wind bent the rain sideways. The world beyond was all darkness and mud. Ben, the young vet assistant, entered with his hood dripping. He looked at the mare, then at Clara. "She's worse tonight," he said quietly. "I can barely catch the foal's heartbeat. Dr. Sayers still stuck past the ridge. Roads are flooded." Clara nodded, jaw tight. She'd known before he said it. For days, Luna had refused food, her body weakening under the strain of late pregnancy. Clara had nursed plenty of rescues through fevers and foaling, but never one this frail, and never one she'd grown to love like this. "She's been fighting too long," Ben added, rubbing his hands together. "If she starts crashing, there's not much." "Don't finish that," Clara said softly. Her voice cracked on the edge of it. "We're not done yet." Ben hesitated, then handed her the stethoscope. She listened. Nothing but the faintest, uneven thud. Her throat burned. Luna had been found 6 months ago, starved and beaten, left tied in a field. Clara had promised her safety, whispered it into her tangled mane that first night. Now that promise felt like a lie she wasn't ready to confess. When Ben left to check the generator, she stayed crouched in the stall, the lantern flickering low. The barn creaked under the weight of wind. Somewhere a door slammed, then silence. Clara stroked Luna's muzzle, humming the old tune her husband used to sing while mending fences. Something low and steady, a sound to keep fear away. "You hear that, sweetheart?" she whispered. "You hold on, you and that baby." The mare's eye fluttered open, dark and glassy. For a heartbeat, Clara saw something there. Recognition, maybe trust, and it tightened her chest until she could hardly breathe. She didn't believe in miracles anymore, not since the accident that took her husband and the best of her faith, but she believed in keeping watch, and not leaving. She adjusted the lantern closer, gathered towels, water, and the faded foaling kit. The barn felt small, the night endless. Each gust of wind rattled the walls like warning. Luna exhaled, long and rough, and the flame trembled as if it too might go out. Clara settled beside her in the straw, one hand resting on that failing heartbeat. "I'm right here," she said, though fear hollowed the words. "We'll see morning together." The storm deepened as night thickened around the farm, the barn's lantern struggling against the dark. Wind hissed through the boards, carrying the smell of rain and electricity. Clara sat beside Luna, her coat soaked through, eyes fixed on the mare's trembling sides. Each labored breath sounded like the ticking of something running out. She tried to keep her voice steady, whispering nonsense meant only to fill the silence. The mare's eyelids fluttered, then stilled again. When Ben returned, his flashlight beam caught Clara's face, pale, strained, streaked with sweat and straw. "The power's gone," he said. "Generator's dead." He hesitated, watching her hands on the mare's flank. "Clara!" "She's not responding. Maybe it's time to—" "Don't say it." Her tone sliced through the noise of rain. "She's still warm." He swallowed hard, then backed away, muttering that he'd try the phone again, though both knew the lines were down. The door closed behind him, and the world shrank to the sound of her breathing and Luna's fragile rasp. Clara leaned closer, pressing her ear to the mare's side. For a moment, nothing. Panic clenched her chest. She pressed harder, desperate for proof that life hadn't left the stall entirely. Then, faint but real, a pulse. Slow, uneven, but there. "Come on, girl," she whispered. "Don't quit now." Her words trembled into the straw. Memories intruded. Her husband standing in the same barn, laughing as the old gelding foaled one stormy night years ago. His hands sure and calm, his voice full of quiet confidence. She believed nothing could touch them then. Now she felt like a ghost walking through the remnants of that life, clinging to a promise made to a dying horse. Another contraction seized Luna's body, sudden and violent. Clara startled, then scrambled to gather towels, warm water, anything. "That's it," she murmured, half to herself, half to the mare. "That's your fight." The mare strained, hooves shifting weakly against the floor. Clara steadied her head, tears streaking mud on her cheeks. Minutes dragged into hours. The wind eased, leaving the world suspended in muffled stillness. The mare's strength waned, each effort weaker than the last. Clara whispered, prayed, pleaded, words spilling like broken glass. "Please," she said, forehead pressed to Luna's neck. "Just let her see her baby once." The contraction stopped. The stillness that followed was too complete. Clara froze, heart pounding in her throat. The air felt wrong, too light. She touched Luna's muzzle, cold now, unresponsive. The lantern flickered and dimmed, casting the stall in ghostly half-light. "No," she breathed, shaking her head. "No, not yet." The wind outside sighed to the open cracks. The only sound left. Clara sank to her knees, numb, her hand still on the mare's chest as the warmth faded beneath her palm. Then, through the quiet, came a sound so small it might have been imagined, a soft, uncertain whimper from the straw beside her. Clara lifted her head, breath catching. Something moved. Clara froze, afraid to breathe. The sound came again, fragile, questioning, like the smallest whisper of life pushing through silence. She turned the lantern toward the straw and saw movement near Luna's flank. For a heartbeat, she couldn't make sense of what she saw. Then the shape shifted, slick and trembling. A foal impossibly alive. Clara's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh, God," she breathed, crawling closer on her knees. "You did it, Luna. You did it." The newborn was still half curled in the straw, shivering under the dim glow. Its coat shimmered faintly, pale as moonlight, streaked with veins of soft gold beneath the wetness. Clara reached out, her hands shaking as she cleared straw from its face, wiping gently around its nostrils. The foal snorted weakly, then drew a thin, trembling breath. She laughed through tears, disbelief flooding every word. "You're real," she whispered. "You're really here." Luna stirred beside her, as if answering. The mare's eyes fluttered open, glassy but aware. She turned her head with visible effort, pressing her muzzle weakly toward the foal. The simple motion cracked something open inside Clara. She guided the tiny creature closer until it rested against its mother's neck. Luna exhaled, a deep, broken sound that carried relief. For long minutes, Clara did nothing but watch them. The storm outside had faded to a low murmur, the barn wrapped in stillness, so pure it felt sacred. Steam rose faintly from their bodies, catching the golden light of dawn that began seeping through the gaps in the roof. The world beyond those wooden walls might as well have vanished. All that remained was this small miracle breathing beside her knees. Ben burst through the door a short while later, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. He froze mid-step when he saw them. "Clara," he whispered, eyes wide. "They're alive?" She nodded, unable to speak. He knelt beside her, inspecting both mother and child. "It's impossible," he murmured. She had no strength left. "Maybe she borrowed mine," Clara said softly, still stroking the foal's neck. "Maybe that's what love does." The foal wobbled then, legs unfolding awkwardly as it tried to stand. Clara held her breath as it swayed, knees buckling before finding balance. Sunlight spilled across the stall, turning the foal's damp coat to liquid gold. Ben exhaled in awe. "Look at that," he said. "I've never seen coloring like it, not in any lineage." Clara smiled faintly. She's her mother's miracle. Luna lifted her head again, nuzzling the foal once more before resting back down. Clara brushed a hand across her mane, whispering thanks through quiet tears. The weight of grief that filled the barn hours ago now felt transfigured, almost holy. The mare had lived long enough to give something back to the world. Clara leaned against the stall wall, exhausted yet lighter than she'd felt in years. "Welcome home, little one," she whispered. Outside, the first bird began to sing. Morning unfolded gently. The storm washed clean from the sky. Sunlight poured through the open barn doors, soft and gold against the damp earth. Clara stood by the fence, her coat unbuttoned, the steam of her coffee rising like breath in the chill. Beyond the pasture, the world looked newly made, grass glistening, air sweet with the scent of rain and hay. Luna grazed near the far end, her movement slow but steady, while the foal darted clumsily beside her, legs still too long for grace. Each step was a discovery. Clara smiled without realizing it. The memory of that night lingered. The fear, the helplessness, the moment the world had seemed to collapse into darkness. Yet here was proof that even darkness had edges where light could find a way through. She leaned against the fence rail, watching the foal's coat catch the sun. The streaks of pale gold shimmered like spun light. She'd never seen anything like it, not in all her years of rescuing horses. It felt like a message, something wordless but clear. Ben approached from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. "She's gaining strength fast," he said, nodding toward Luna. "Another week and she'll be out of danger." Clara nodded. "She's tougher than she looked." "So are you," he said. The comment made her glance away, embarrassed by its truth. They walked along the fence line together, the silence between them easy now. The land stretched green and wide around them, the same soil that had buried her losses, now giving back in its quiet way. At the gate, Ben paused. "While you name the foal?" Clara studied the pair in the field. The mare lowered her head to graze, and the foal pressed close against her side, sunlight glancing off its mane. "Aurora," she said after a moment, "for the light that comes after the storm." Ben smiled. Fitting. When he left, Clara stayed, leaning on the fence until the shadows lengthened. Later, she carried a small photograph to the edge of the pasture, her husband's smile faded but kind, frozen in another lifetime. She placed it beneath the oak tree, where the wind moved through the grass in slow waves. "You'd have loved her," she whispered. "You always said every creature deserves a second chance." The foal lifted its head then, ears twitching, eyes bright as it looked toward her. Clara felt something shift quietly inside her chest, not the ache of loss, but the pulse of beginning. As the sun dipped behind the hills, she turned back toward the barn, the air filled with the steady rhythm of hooves and heartbeats. Life had returned to the farm, not in a grand way, but in a whisper that said, "Keep going." The light lingered long after dusk, as if refusing to fade. "You said